do this class study. So just like in the other stories we've read, we want to pay attention to what the author is doing. And by paying attention to the characterization in this story, we can see how the author in The Sniper creates a punch in the gut ending. And it's because of his careful character descriptions. So we are going to look at a few paragraphs, 3 specifically, from the story that describe the sniper, and we're going to analyze the sniper's characterization through the descriptions that we get of him and what those descriptions mean and their connotation. Now, a lot of the time we use words in their literal sense, what the word literally means, but sometimes we don't use it in a literal sense. We will imply or hint at the meaning we are using by how we are using that word, the context that we found it in. For example, if someone says, "Oh yeah, that's cool," they probably mean something is awesome, not that something is a little bit cold, right? So what you need to do is copy these 3 paragraphs underneath this from on a rooftop to when the sniper, those 3 paragraphs into Google Doc. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to read through and define any words we don't really recognize or understand in parentheses next to that word in the paragraph. Then we'll go through and highlight adjectives and descriptive phrases that describe the sniper in each paragraph. I would recommend doing this 1 paragraph at a time. So like second and third pieces together, 1 paragraph at a time. Third, you're going to write your cumulative impression that you get from the paragraph. Like, what feeling do we get about the sniper? What is the sniper's attitude and characteristics that we're picking out of that paragraph? And you're just going to write like in a line underneath. You can give yourself a space underneath if you need. I will demonstrate with this first paragraph. And that's all I'm going to show you how to do. You have to do the other 2 on your own. And then the fourth part is you analyze the change in the sniper. So you can just simply say in the first paragraph, the sniper was described as this, and the second one he was described as this. The third one he was described as this, which shows a change from like happy to sad or sad to happy, whatever it is, right? In this one, that's a little simplistic for this story, but that's the idea. And then that you're kind of looking for, like where do we get taken on the characteristics, and how does this add to the theme we noticed in the story yesterday? So does it make us more emotionally invested? Does it make us feel like we understand the sniper better? Those kinds of things. In adding to the theme, I'm not really looking for you to explain more about the theme, but simply emphasizing what it's doing, what effect it's causing to the theme by paying attention to these characteristics. Okay, so I just have a Microsoft Word, but obviously you're using Google Docs. So I have these 3 paragraphs copied over, and we're going to do step 1. I'll do all step 1 with you, and then I will show you how to do steps 2 and 3 using this first paragraph. So as we read through this, we just want to define any words that are unusual or different. Maybe we don't know the definition right off the top of our head. On a rooftop near O'Connell Bridge, a Republican sniper lay watching. Republican in this case is not talking about like an American Republican, but an Irish Republican. But from the context of the story, we know that this is one of the sides fighting in the war. I don't feel like I need to add that in here, but if you feel like you need to, you're welcome to do so. Beside him lay his rifle, and over his shoulders was slung a pair of field glasses. Good there. I totally feel like I understood that sentence. His face was the face of a student, thin and ascetic. Okay, this is a word that is unusual. I don't see it a lot. I kind of have an idea of what it means, but I'm not 100% sure. So this is when we want to look up what this word means. You might be able to do a right click and look up like a definition. In this one, it will pull it up on the side for me. But you can also Google it. Google will be just fine. You just type in definition of aesthetic, right? So this says characterized by or suggesting the practice of severe self-discipline and abstention from all forms of indulgence, typically for religious reasons. Now, if you don't understand a word inside the definition, like abstention, you probably want to look it up too. But I know what that means. Abstention means avoidance of, basically. So really self-disciplined, so disciplined that they avoid any kind of indulgence. So that means like they never have dessert or they never do anything fun. So that's a useful definition for me. I'm going to close that and type in here self disciplined and serious. No fun. Because that's the impression that I got from the definition. Okay, but his eyes had the cold gleam of the fanatic. Again, I want to look that up because that's another word that I recognize, but I don't remember exactly. This says a person filled with excessive and single-minded zeal, especially for extreme religious or political cause. Okay, zeal, what does that mean? So if we keep seeing we down here filled with or expressing excessive zeal, synonyms all-consuming, consuming, compulsive, dominating, controlling. Maybe this guy's a little obsessive, right? He's very dedicated to his cause, obsessively dedicated to a cause. Okay. Feel good about that. They were deep and thoughtful, the eyes of a man who's used to looking at death. Okay, feel good. Understand that one just fine. The sniper looked at his enemy falling and he shuddered. And it's pretty straightforward. The lust of battle died in him. Lust is a word that I've seen before. I feel like I understand in like a romantic context, but what about in this context? Let's look it up. It says very strong sexual desire. Okay, we know that that's not how this is being used. Verb, another verb, let's see. There is definitely, let's see what synonyms we have. Passion. Be consumed with a desire for. So desire, there we go, desire. That makes more sense. The desire for battle, right? That makes more sense. Like not in the sexual sense, but desire for passion of battle died in him. That makes sense when I read that. He became bitten by remorse. If you don't know what remorse is, you could look it up as well. We have deep regret or guilt. So he feels bad. The sweat stood out and beads on his forehead, weakened by his wound and the long summer day of fasting and watching on the roof. He revolted. Now that's a word like remorse. I feel like you probably didn't need to define necessarily, but revolted might be a word that you need to define. And if we look, disgusted is the definition there. So he was disgusted by the sight of his dead enemy. His teeth chattered. He began to gibber to himself. Gibber is definitely a word you don't see every day. So let's look that one up. And it says to speak rapidly or unintelligibly, typically through fear or shock. So talk senselessly to himself. All right, good. Cursing the war, cursing himself, cursing everybody. Feel good about that. When the sniper reached the laneway on the street level, he felt a sudden curiosity as to the identity of the enemy sniper whom he had killed. Curiosity you might need to define, but I think you probably know it means being interested in something, right? He decided that he was a good shot, whoever he was. He wondered, did he know him? Perhaps he had been in his own company before the split in the army. He decided to risk going over to have a look at him. All of those I feel really good about. I don't think I have anything that I'm even a little bit fuzzy on. So then we come back to the top of the page. And step 2 was to highlight adjectives or descriptive phrases about the sniper. So, on a rooftop near O'Connell Bridge, a Republican sniper is describing which side he's on, right? Lay watching. Beside him lay his rifle, and over his shoulders was slung a pair of field glasses. That's describing what he looks like, but it's not really significant as far as characteristics go. His face was the face of a student. So the face of a student. Maybe he's pretty young, right? Students are typically young, unless they're professors or something, but then they would be a professor instead of a student. Thin and aesthetic or self-disciplined. So looking up that definition really helps us understand the connotation of that word. But his eyes had the cold gleam of a fanatic. So that's helpful because he's serious and he's dedicated almost obsessively to this cause that he's joined. They were deep and thoughtful. So kind of tying that to the student, right? He's smart, he's thoughtful, he's thinking about things. The eyes of a man who is used to looking at death. I'm going to highlight used to looking at death because that tells us some important information. Okay, so now that I've highlighted those, obviously I've been talking through my impressions as I highlighted, but now I'm going to kind of put them together and type them up. My impression of this paragraph. The sniper has, right, if we look at this first thing, he's joined a side. He's joined a side in the Civil War on purpose. We get that impression because he is a fanatic. He's dedicated to his cause. So he's dedicated. What other characteristics can we pull out? He's smart, right? He's a student, deep and thoughtful. So he's smart. He's dedicated, smart, used to looking at death. So if someone's used to looking at death, they're kind of okay with doing what they have to do, which I don't think most people feel comfortable killing other people. So we could say that he's hardened by the fighting. It seems like he's gotten pretty used to his job of taking people's lives, which takes a bit of work, right? Especially because we don't typically start out feeling okay with killing people. So what's the sniper's attitude? His attitude seems to be really serious, right? And he's dedicated and hardened. So if I put all those kind of impressions together, I get matter of fact. Serious and matter of fact. He's just doing the job he needs to do. Right? He's not emotionally involved. He's just doing the job that he needs to do. So you're going to finish doing that for the other 2 paragraphs. Look for things like little snippets like this. You don't necessarily want to highlight whole lines if they're not useful to you. But you can if you feel like a line is especially helpful to you. And then you're going to write a little impression just like this at the bottom of this paragraph, and then you'll do the 3rd paragraph and write another little impression at the bottom of that. Then answer that final question. So you'll write something like, the author um, shows the change in the sniper from the beginning of the story to the end by starting out with a matter of fact attitude, moving to a whatever you discover attitude, and concluding with a your third attitude. This change adds to the theme of the story. Sorry, I'll scroll up a little bit so you can see that better. By, and here you can put in something like creating a relatable, emotional journey for the reader, making, or you could do something like making a stronger emotional impact, describing a understandable intellectual journey in the sniper, etc. Right? So you decide what it does, how it adds to the theme. Like if that's an emotional impact, if that's an intellectual impact, if that is making the character more relatable, that kind of thing. And then you'll just turn that in. Thanks.